So I leave from Nairobi with a suit, like the one that I have on, and a briefcase. And this one was winter time. So in the United States. I got to New York, it was in January 1987.
1987?
87. And nobody was expecting me to come to the United States. But here was the thing. Never underestimate your, either those passengers you are with in the plane. They can mention one thing, and that thing can help you. So I had with this gentleman, he's called Samuel. His home is at Kericho from home. I knew that he was a Kisi. And I heard him talking that he was coming to the United States. He was going to New Jersey. And that's where I was going. So I said, I will not leave this guy. When he gets out of the plane, I'll follow him. So here we are.
I know what that means.
So he said, we are in New York, in a little suit, no heavy t-shirt from inside, and it's cold.
Super cold.
Super cold. So this guy started walking fast to wherever he was going. He didn't have luggage much, so he's walking. I followed him. So he meets his a family member who came to pick him up. His name is Kinma Chuki. He was an engineer in New Jersey. It was his brother-in-law. So comes and asks them, hey, you know, they talk in Swahili, karibu, karibu. They greet each other. And I did not want for them to disappear from where they were. As soon as then he looked at me, that Kini Nyamwange, he looked at me. He said, you look like a Kisi. I said, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm a Kisi. Say, where are you? Where is there somebody coming to pick you up? I said, no. But I know one person called Peter Magembe. Because my uncle had made a mistake, or a good mistake. Had mentioned that name when I was in Nairobi. That he lives in New Jersey City. So I said, yeah. There is a man called Peter Magembe. Yes. That's where I'm going, but they are not sure whether I was coming today. He said, let me call him first. He calls Peter Magembe. Peter Magembe says, no, I don't expect, I didn't, no, I don't know. I said, I knew if he could put that phone down, I was not going to have a chance to speak with him.
You did, yes.
Guess what I did? I said, can you give me the phone? I said, hello, my name is Chris Arori, a nephew to your friend, Uncle Raphael Raini.
When he had that?
When he had that, he said, yeah, bring that child to my house. And that's how I got to Magembe's house.
My good Lord.
The good news, when I got to Magembe's house, and I tell the young people, or even older people, one thing that I did at Magembe's house was to clean the house, cook for them, mop the house, walk with the little kids that he had to school. Because I knew by doing that, he was also going to have this idea of helping this newcomer to the United States.
Yes.
I did that. And I saw good results out of that.
The Tanya story is really interesting. And I really wish as we have more and more of the juice of that, of that story. But let's go back to your book now. Can you tell us a little bit about your book, you and your choices? What enticed you to write this book?
If you listen very closely, why I wrote just that title.
Title, yes.
Whatever I went through during my formative years, it was because of the choices I made. They were not the choices that my parents forced me to make. It was those individual choices. And by making those choices, some of them put me in a very awkward position, took me to areas that maybe my parents never wanted me to go to. But I don't regret by writing this about that, and if you read more about this book, you will find that it is true by making those choices, individual choices. That's why today I'm sitting here and talking with you, Gilgil, because of selecting specific choices. Whether they were bad choices or good choices, they made me to be who I am today.
How challenging was this duration of writing the book? I mean, work, you have a family, you have your wife, you have your children, you had to work to sustain the family, work to pay your bills, at the same time, get time to write and do research about your book.
That's a good question, Leo, and thank you for asking that question. I will give a summary, but if you want to know more, you can reach out and talk with me. Sit down and talk with me. You know, it was not easy to write a book. The idea of writing the book, this has been just so many years ago when I wanted to write something like this. But it took only one person after we had a sitting at Umoja, Seventh-day Adventist Church, during a funeral ceremony. And then one of the members from that church asked me, no, after we had left, because I usually give little pep talks about health. He calls me, I'm driving, coming to my address, and I was with one Mzeis in the community, is Osoro, a great man. He told me, Chris, I said, yes. Have you ever thought of writing and putting information out so that you can help other people? Because I always hear you talk about these wonderful ideas. Why can't you do this? Guess what I did? After that phone was over, Mzee Soros told me, looked at me, says, what Mwoma said is right. That evening when I came, I started going to my files in my computer because I had started the introduction part of the book many years ago, but I had put it to the, like, yes, to not to worry about it because I was busy working. But the preparation, the struggles led to this. So if you want to know how, then I started putting it together. I started writing and living through my life. Because that's my life which I've lived. But I didn't want to become biased. I wanted to include some scientific evidence. What it means if you make good choices, what can come out of that? And when you make those bad choices, what can come out of that? But it does not mean by making those bad choices, you can't again make a U-turn and make good choices that can place you to where I am today.
Just let us go dive into this book a little bit and look at politics and the society and the choices that people make. How do you compare the three in your book? And I could like you to reference both the United States and Kenya, where you come from. How do you relate to those 3 points? Just briefly. I know they're going to buy the book and just find the whole meat.
Yes, Duke. Thank you so much for that question. For many years, countries around the world either made good choices and some bad choices. If I can compare being in the United States, because I've been here close to 40 years, and when I was at home in about 20 plus years, so I see many people making wrong choices in the United States, appointing their leaders and all that. But here's what the mistakes we make, and that drove me, that gave me like it was a burning, that burning sensation within my soul, within my brain. I wanted to let people know that it is not them, it is about us. Because what happens is, I can tell you, like in Kenya, for example, when we go to the voting stations, sometimes we go there already basically sedated. At times you are completely drunk by the lies, by what you want to hear. They have given you the money. So when you go to the voting, you are just going there as a drunk, somebody who is drunk, who is not using your brain. So you choose based on what you have been fed into your brain. And in the process, we end up selecting leaders. Once they go, they take those positions, then again, we start asking ourselves, what went wrong?
Yeah, that's true.
What went wrong is because we went to those voting stations when we were sedated, completely drunk with the lies. And one thing I believe, there is no leader in this world who is perfect. All leaders, they have weaknesses. But at the same time, these weaknesses they have, I thought about it and I had to address it in that book. The only way you can understand where I was coming from is by reading the book. You'll find that it's true at some point. We are the ones who make sometimes wrong choices.
There's another important part of the book. I've read this book, and there's another important aspect I'd like us to cover in our discussion today. I've seen you've covered the stages of growth, from conception to giving birth. And I have not finished my question.
Yes.
And the social setup of different children. Can you compare that? How the outcomes are different? For example, a child whose social setup is in the United States and a child whose social setup is in Africa. And the parents also. How do you marry these points? But categorically, I see it didn't affect you much because at long run you achieved what you wanted to achieve. So your social setup didn't really, I don't know whether it affected you or not, but please just touch on that point.
Oh, thank you, Duke, again, for asking that. That's a heavy question. And we don't even have time for me to address even a portion.
I just want you to be brief.
The meat of that.
Yeah.
If you look at yourself, is it your fault to look the way you are?
No.
It's not my fault either to talk the way I talk. Is it my fault? I don't know. But let me tell you, the way you are raised, the way you are born as a young person, in any setup, it matters. If you had to imagine that you had to go to a place you are born and nobody is around you, you don't know who you will become. So exposure to your folks, to your people, to the way you relate yourself to them, matters a lot. So, for example, in my case, Duke, you say it didn't affect me that much. Yes, it did. You know, when you are brought up in that family, I thank God, those of you who believe in God, I thank God because finding myself in that situation in the rural areas did not determine who I was going to become. Never, because what happened is they nurtured me. They did not burn, they didn't break my feet. At least I have my 2 legs. They didn't break my legs. So I'm here today. So that's why the environment is very important. But at the same time, there is the genetic part which is very important. I am who I am, the physical part that you see, that's biology. But there are some that we do that affects us. The unfortunate part, as I was writing this book, I have been trained now in the healthcare industry. What I've discovered is what parents take when the child, when they're being prepared to come to this world. That's a soft language that I used. When you think about the father and the mother, it is the way, the choices they make. If, say, for example, the father drinks heavily or the mother drinks heavily, what happens is when these children come to this world, they come already, their brain is damaged to some extent. So do the drugs. And that when I've seen it in my practice, as I work in different hospitals, I've seen babies born with very tiny little heads, or completely, they are messed up. Even if when they are growing up has already been messed up from when they are tiny little babies. But here's the good news and the bad news. So those parents who really take care of themselves without using those drugs, using alcohol, or using any other lifestyles, prostitution and all that, they bring those children, they come growing and in a good way, not 100%, because there is a social factor. But they are able to be brought up in a good way and they become very responsible members of society. But here's the problem. Our societies, even where we were raised, also matter. They matter. Where we take our children to school, whether in the United States or in Kenya. So if you take a child to say you live, there's a school, there are drugs everywhere, and the United States, we work all the time. The school is taking care of your children and their friends. So you end up having children, even when they finish school, they're already drunkards. And this is the thing that has become I get questioned a lot, and I'm very passionate about it. These things can change. It's not that it is a permanent damage. Something can be done so that you are born, yes, with maybe those challenges, but still when you grow, if you find a good people, you are exposed to good, positive people, you can come out of that and succeed. Just like I succeeded in making those choices during those early days.
Daktari, thank you so much. But there is the last point I want you to put across before I give you the chance to market your book. There is, at what intervals did you get your degrees? At what? Because I see that in Kenya, you went to NY, and you came, you worked so hard, you did. When I was reading about your biography,
yes,
I saw you have so many degrees. At what point did you get them? At what point did you marry late in life? What happened? And I'm sorry to ask you that question because there's somebody there who's maybe 30, 40, 50, and he thinks he can't go to school, he can't get whatever that he wants in life. At what point, at what stages in life did you achieve what you want?
So I'll start from the top, the highest degree down. So I attained or achieved the PhD degree at the age of 50. There was a reason why I did that. I didn't want to go past 50 before I achieved my highest degree. And I managed to get that. But if I can tell you from there, going down, I have been in community colleges in the United States. I remember the young people or anybody who's watching this clip. I went to Wake Tech Community College. I did information systems. At that time, the programming courses were called RPGs, Report Programming Generator, where you could stay in the lab and with those big mainframes. And to access the computer, you had to memorize this long command before you can get there. I realized that's not what I wanted to do. While I was doing information systems, I took a psychology course. I became interested. I said I want to pursue this. But with the goal, I wanted to go to medical school. That one was the plan. So I said, what can I do? I went to North Carolina Central University, which is a predominantly African-American college, university. I stayed there. I was pre-med. So I was doing biology and psychology during my undergraduate. That's where I did. That's what I. Let me tell you, or the viewers. That's when I discovered myself. I started hey, I can do math. I can do biology. I can do chemistry. I started memorizing. I started knowing. Oh my goodness.
So some things come later in life?
Oh yes, yes. So this is the difference, if I can go back, that's the difference being in the United States and being in Kenya. In Kenya, I was known that that's a person who is a liberal arts, a historian, and I was very good in history. When I taught, all teachers could stop and stand at the windows, watch Chris talk, teach. But I came later to realize that I even know physics. The current flowing through a conductor is exactly proportional, and all that, Ohm's law. So I realized, oh my, I am a scientist as well.
You can do it.
I can do it. Then I had double major, I finished. My classmates during graduation, I was the top student. I'm the one who carried the flag with honors. Two of my friends went, one went to Johns Hopkins, she's a medical doctor. At that time I wanted to go back to Kenya because my eyes were set to go back to Kenya. So I did a master's in clinical psychology. That's when I wrote, if you look at the book, if you read about the book, I wrote